One of the best comedies I've found during this time of pandemic is one called Community. And just in a nutshell, basically it follows the adventures of this study group as they go through their time at a community college. And there's one particular episode when the dean of the school is trying to make a commercial, an advertisement to promote the school because they haven't had one in many years. And the dean, unfortunately, gets really wrapped up in what he's doing. So much so that he ends up traumatizing half the school as a result of trying to bring his vision to life. And at the end of all this, he goes up to the study group and he starts very haphazardly to try to explain what it was that exactly happened. And when he realizes very quickly that he doesn't have the words, he says to them, "Can you just forgive me?" And Jeff, the leader of this study group, looks at him and says, "Yeah." And he starts tearing up a little bit and he says, "Why?" And Jeff responds to him, "Because we've all been there. That's why we're here." Now, we, too, have all received mercy. And we're called in turn to have mercy for others. That's really at the core of what we get from our reading from Romans today. Yes, Romans is about the bringing in and the relationship of the Jewish members and the Gentile members of the early Christian community. But what we get from that lesson to those people so long ago, the lesson for us is that God is showing mercy to all. And that it's through the disobedience of others that leads to our own receiving of mercy. So because those others disobeyed and God showed mercy on them, we too are able to receive that mercy. And the hope that we see in this passage is that our receiving mercy will provide the opportunity for others to receive mercy too. And all of what Jesus says in the gospel today has to do with mercy. So people are eating unclean things and eating things with unwashed hands, something, that last part I wouldn't recommend at this time in particular. And doing those things may break the law that was given in Torah. But what Jesus tells us is that it's ultimately the things that we do and say that are most important. It's not what we bring into our bodies that matters, but what comes out, what we speak, what we do, what we say. And that is what God ultimately cares about. Even when we disobey the law, God is there to show us mercy. And the Canaanite woman wouldn't have been a Jew like the other Jews that Jesus was ministering among. But in the end, she doesn't let that fact keep her from pleading her case. And even though this woman would have seemed unworthy at this point in time, even though she very much seemed unworthy to the disciples who wanted Jesus to push her away, Jesus still looks at her and has mercy. So as Jeff says to the dean, we've all been there. We've all found ourselves not quite living up to the rules or expectations that we were given. We all at times have not been part of the right group. More importantly, we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And yet every time, God has shown us mercy. God has shown us mercy, and now we are called on to show that same mercy to others. After this pandemic is said and done, there will be many people who, like the dean, have fallen short. We will not be able to forget the actions of those who put their own personal freedoms ahead of our freedoms to be safe and healthy and alive. But we will have to forgive, even if we can't forget. And forgiveness doesn't mean that it's all okay. It's not what we get in our scripture readings this morning. It's not what we get from the dean's interaction with the study group. Forgiveness doesn't mean it's all okay. It means the opposite. But forgiveness is how we can move on. We can move on in our lives, and that we can move along in our lives with one another. And we move forward in the hope that the other will one day get to this point where we say and do the right things. But first there has to be mercy. First there has to be forgiveness. And the hope is that forgiveness will always allow us to show the same mercy that God has shown to us. By showing mercy, forgiveness on others, hopefully they can see the same mercy that God has shown to us, and that God in turn shows to them through our mercy. Maybe doing that will help bring those people closer to God. That's the hope with mercy. That we become closer to God, that we become closer to God through God's mercy on us. And that is ultimately what our faith is all about.